Hello there, welcome to Craft with Fee and welcome to week 8 of our Woodland Stitchalong. This week we're going to be making a project bag, and this bag is designed to hold a pattern in the front pocket and also your project in the body of the bag itself. So it's fully lined, it has a little zipper, there's a little zipper pull on there for you to pick it up very easily to do. You can pop a stitchery project in there with your pattern in the front and all your goodies in the back. Even an EPP project would be perfect to go in this. There's a full tutorial for you to watch, and as always there is a download sheet. The download sheet has all of the instructions. It also has the stitchery on it, and you can download this from the website for $3 Australian. So the website is feefeandme.com. Just go to the Childer Club downloads and you'll be able to find that one there. We have, of course, also got a beautiful kit here for you as well. So the kit contains everything that you need to complete this project. It has the pattern also printed there. It's one of our one sheet wonders. So all the instructions are on the back, including the cutting measurements. You've got your fusible parlan. You've got your lining fabric. You'll have little bits of these left over as well. You also have your main fabric and your binding fabric. You have a pre-printed stitchery, your thread, a zip, and you've got a zipper pull in the kit as well. They will be random. You just get whatever's in the kit. And the kits are just $20. So really, really good value there for you. So you can find all of those, as mentioned before, at feefeandme.com. So off you go. You can start the video now and good luck. Okay, let's make this project bag. So I'm going to tell you what you're going to need. I am using width of fabric for my binding fabric, but I'm going to give you the measurements for both. So this is your contrast, and then you have your main fabric, and I'm using this gorgeous grey. Okay, so if you're using some fabric that is off the bolt, you can cut a 2-inch piece by width of fabric for binding, okay? And then you can also cut a 2-inch by 8-inch piece. If you are using a fat 1/8, you can cut 3 pieces that are 2 inches in width by the length of your fat 1/8, which should be about 22 inches. So you'll end up with about 66 inches of binding, okay? You will also need a zip, which needs to be at least 10 inches, okay? And you can have it so it coordinates with the colours. I like to use white or cream a lot in my projects because they seem to just go with everything. You will need some lining fabric. So 2 pieces of lining fabric. One will measure 7.5 inches square. The other piece will measure 10 inches by 7.5 inches. Okay, so you've got your 2 pieces of lining. You will need to cut your main fabric. 2 pieces of main fabric from your fat 1/8. Both of these need to measure 10 inches by 7.5. Then you will have your stitchery fabric that you will need to cut, which needs to be 7.5 inches square. You can pop a piece of a fusible parlan the same size, so 7.5 inches square on the back, and this is where you will do your stitchery design. You will also need a second piece of fusible parlan to go on the back of one of your main pieces of fabric, so that needs to measure 7.5 by 10. Now, if you are going to be doing the download from the website, the $3 download, you will get all of these measurements, so you don't need to worry about writing them down, and I will give you on that both of the binding measurements. And of course, if you're buying the kit, it's all in there anyway, so you don't need to worry about it. Okay, so we'll get to this stitchery. So you've got your piece of hanky linen or whatever your stitchery fabric is going to be, 7.5 inches square. The fusible parlan on the back after you have popped your image on there. So if you've got an iron-on transfer, you can use my iron-on transfer method. You'll find a video on this channel regarding that. Or you can trace it with a light box, put the pattern sheet underneath, put the fabric over the top, trace it with a pencil or a water-soluble marker or even an iron-off marker. If you use an iron-off marker, you can't fuse your parlan to the back of it prior because you will lose your image. But I have stitched the whole image in one colour. This is DMC 99 and that thread is in the kit, and I've done it all in chain stitch. Now you can stitch it in different colours. You can do the flowers a different colour and your leaves green. Whatever you wish to do, totally up to you. Okay? So what we're going to do is we're going to take over to the ironing board to begin with. We're going to fuse a piece of the main fabric to the piece of parlan. Okay? The other thing that we're going to do, because just imagine that I've done that, we are then going to take our stitchery square there, and we are going to put our 7.5 inch piece of lining on the back of it. Now the lining piece, you need to have the right side of the lining here. Okay, you are then going to take your 8 inch piece of binding fabric and you are going to iron it in half with the wrong sides together. So you can imagine that I've ironed that. You are then going to take this over to the sewing machine and you are going to sew down with a 1/4 inch seam this piece of binding. We'll do that and we'll come back. Okay, so that is now ironed. So what we're going to do is we're going to flip it over and we are going to take a pair of scissors and we are going to trim that piece of binding back to the raw edge. So just trim off that little bit of excess there. And you can put it in your scrap bin or whatever you want. Then we are going to open out that piece of binding. We're going to fold it over to the back and then we're going to use some clips and we are going to clip down our bits of binding just like that, and then we're going to go and do a hand stitching along the binding on the inside. I'm just going to use a blind stitch like you would on any binding and stitch that down. Okay, all sewn down now, so we can pop that off to one side. The piece of main fabric that has the parlane attached you can also pop off to one side, and we need to use the remaining piece. What we're going to do is we're going to pop it onto our cutting board. We're going to have the 10 inch side at the top and the 7.5 inch side on the side here, and we are going to cut off 1.5 inches from the top using a rotary cutter. Okay, so we're just going to cut that off. And now we are going to turn this over 1/4 inch and we're going to iron it down on that side, and then we're going to do the same thing on this side. Turn it over by 1/4 inch and then we'll come back. And there we go. And what we're going to do now is we're going to sew this to our zip. So we're going to take this over to the sewing machine and we are going to sew this piece on this side and the top piece on the other side. Okay, so we're just going to run the side of our foot along the edge of the zipper. I've used a couple of clips just to hold it in place a little bit as I go. So we're just going to lift our foot so that the fabric doesn't buckle, but we are just going to sew along here slowly. So you just need to make sure that that foot is just following the zipper, and then you know that your stitching is going to be nice and straight on the top. Okay, it's really quite easy. There's no need to use a zipper foot. There is no need to be concerned about a zip being really scary. We're just going to do a basic, simple insertion of a zip. Very, very easy. Okay. And look how easy it is. That's it. So now I'll go ahead and do the other side, and then I'll meet you back over at the cutting table. And that's our zip sewn in. So it's so simple, so super, super simple. So don't get too frightened by the looks of a zip. So what we're going to do now is we are going to just do a little bit of sewing of this zip together, because we need to have our zip pull in towards the center. Otherwise, if we leave it out here and then we trim our zip, of course we've lost our pulley, so we can't have that. So we need to have it in around about the center. We can stitch along here about at 1/8 in just to make sure that our zip's all together, but on this end, of course, it's going to fly open, so we need to stitch it together so that when we come time to put this bag together, we don't have to worry about how this is going to be looking with the zip gaping open. So you can use a pin, and I'll grab one. Just grab a nice big pin, and we are just going to pin these two bits here together in a fashion. Okay, it doesn't matter how ugly it looks. You can put the pin through 3 or 4 different bits of fabric, but the whole purpose of it is we need to hold these 2 bits of zipper together until we take it over to the machine, and then we're going to stitch down here 1/8 of an inch so that we can then trim off our zipper. Okay, so not everything happens perfectly when you're doing a video. I have just deleted a stage of this video that I now need to redo. So we're going to have to wig this. So we have sewn along our zippers here, you can see on both sides, and then I've just trimmed the zipper off. So what we're going to do next is we're going to take our main piece of fabric that we have the parlan attached to, and we're going to lay it down onto our work surface with the wrong side facing up. We're then going to place our piece of lining fabric on top of that with the right side facing up. Okay, we're then going to place on top of that our piece with the zip in it. Now you may notice that mine all matches up beautifully, and when you do yours it's not going to. That is because, I'm just going to try and put this piece here back. You will have, showing out the top here, you will have the lining fabric is going to be taller than this piece, and your backing fabric here is as well. All you need to do is to trim that back so that they are the same, and that's the part of the video that we're missing. So I do apologise for that. So it's just a matter of trimming it up so that it you get a nice level edge at the top, and you're just going to lose this tiny bit here. So just throw that in the bin. That's absolutely fine. Okay, so what we're going to do, and you can see that these corners all match beautifully, so it's a lovely, nice, neat package. We're then going to pop the pocket on the front. Okay, now it's up to you. I have given you the measurements of 7.5 inches square for this pocket, and you can have your little bag looking like this, so you've got a very high pocket. Or you can decide to lower the pocket as low as you want, and obviously that's going to depend on how high up your stitching is. But you can make that pocket as high or as low as you wish, simply by moving it before we do the binding process. So I'm happy with mine about there, I think. That will give me enough room for the binding to go on, and you can still see my stitchery here on the bottom. I should be showing you that. So this is the bottom of my bag along here. Okay, so I'm just using my fingernail just to crease that, and then I will just use the rotary cutter, and I'll just line up my line on the side here just to make sure that we're going to be cutting nice and straight. And I'm just going to trim that straight off and throw that in the bin. Okay, now the reason we don't cut the pocket down at the start is so that you can decide visually how you want the front of your bag to look, how high you want that pocket. Okay, so then you just pop the pocket on, and you can see now that you've got all these layers. You've got a lovely big sandwich. What you're going to do is just clip all of those together, and then we're going to do the binding. So the binding is what holds this bag together. So we're going to do the binding exactly the same way as we did the cushion binding last week. If you haven't watched that video, go ahead and watch it. It gives you a step-by-step guide to how to not only bind, but also how to join your binding. So you'll need to go and watch that. We also start off with a lovely right-angled fold there. That's how I do my binding. So I'm going to start my binding at around about the halfway mark down here on the side, and I'm going to miter the corners as I go round and sew this all the way around my bag, and then I'll come back. Okay, and there we go. So we've got our mitered corners, and you'll know from the video prior that you've got your little flappy bits here, and we're just going to turn our binding to the other side, and that's our join there. So that just slips into our start and finish area there. Turn it all over, and then we're going to clip it down and then stitch it to the back. I'll do that, and then we'll come back. Okay, there we go. So the binding is all sewn over to the back side there, just hand stitched down, and this is the front of our little project bag. So we can just now attach our little zipper pull to our little zip, and there we go. It's all done. So I hope that you've enjoyed today's project. We've just got 2 more left to go in the Woodland series, and I will be back next week to show you our next one. Bye for now.